Hi guys, awesome to be here. Thank you all for taking the time off your precious lunches to learn a little bit about biohacking. We're going to get connected in just a couple of seconds. But I'll start talking anyway. So, what is biohacking? How many of you are familiar with the term? Okay, so it deserves a minute or two of explanation for the majority here. Biohacking, I mean, when you hear of hackers, you often think of bad guys breaking into a system, stealing data or money. But biohacking goes back to original meaning of hacking, which is just experimenting. And we biohackers, just like classical hackers experiment with computers, hardware and software, we experiment with biological systems. And with biological systems, I mean anything from single-cell organisms to plants, to small animals, all the way up to Homo sapiens. And we do this in a very much a grassroots, do-it-yourself way. And we meet up in maker spaces and biohacker spaces, and there are dozens of these places all around the world. Okay, let's kick it, the presentation. You seeing the presentation? I'm seeing it here. Anyway. And for us biohackers, it's very important that we are sort of a grassroots organization. And it's activists, and it's not organized by, it's not paid by any company, and it's not sponsored by any government. So we like to protect our independence. So who are the biohackers then? Here's a very brief overview. I mean, it's very diverse groups that come together into the biohacker movement. People with backgrounds typically in labs, with a specific understanding in what we call do-it-yourself biology, which is very much about experimenting with reading and editing DNA of organisms. We also have the entire quantified self movement, which you're probably familiar with. Quantified self, the idea of measuring stuff, what's going on in your body, such as pulse, temperature, all different health variables, and then applying a scientific approach to this information. Not just logging it, but experimenting. What happens? So I log my sleep for a month. What happens if I then have a coffee at 7 o'clock? How many percentages of good quality sleep do I lose potentially by having coffee in the evening? And you experiment, you do that over time, and you find out the correlation between drinking coffee or beer, etc. in the evening. And then this is information that you can use to improve yourself. Now, the idea with this particular hack is not to, like traditional science does, to find general conclusions that apply to everyone, but quantified self is about science where n equals 1. So what is relevant is what works for yourself, and it may not be possible to generalize. We also have the very exciting community of grinders. This is an old culture of body modification, of putting piercings or rings or tattoos in different parts of your body. And when these communities come together, these very interesting exchanges happen. We also take a lot of inspiration from here. The body hacker picture I bring up is about taking inspiration from professional athletics. How do I, as an office worker, how do I improve my performance like a professional athlete? Not perhaps in terms of stamina while running, but for example, in intellectual performance throughout long working days. Well, I also have to work with nutrition, food supplements, improving my sleep cycles, etc., in order to improve my performance. And we all want to live to be 120, right? So we have to manage these bodies as good as we can. And this is also an important element of the biohacker culture. Now, what is the drivers for this very diverse movement, which to me is probably the most exciting innovation movement on this planet right now, the biohacker movement? Well, it's all about the democratization of technology. I mean, we have seen this with computers. When they moved from being big and expensive and just sitting in companies to being democratized and people could have them at home, it led to an explosion in innovation. This is what we are right now witnessing also in the context of lab technology. So lab technology is becoming cheaper, it's becoming smaller, and therefore it's becoming a lot easier for guys who doesn't have a lot of resources to use. And we also have a growing open source hardware culture. that supports the whole biohacker movement. Here is an example. This is a PCR recycler that you do when you have a genetic sample. You need to copy it. You need to make a lot of copies in order to read that DNA. So now you can buy this online. It's an open source thing. It's like an IKEA pack, and you just have to put it together yourself. And then we have one of these that we run in the biohacker lab. And just a few years ago, this costs thousands of euros, and now it's just $600. I'm sure it's going to be even cheaper in the coming years. So I'm going to give you some classic examples of biohacks. Here's I don't know if you're familiar, this is a Kickstarter campaign that was made about 2 years ago about creating glowing plants. Taking genes from fireflies and putting them into, this is a tobacco plant, to make them glow in the dark, with the ultimate vision of replacing street lights. Now, isn't that quite cool? They're still working on it. It takes time, generation by generation, to make these plants glow better and better. So evolution is happening, but it's not so quick. Another fun hack, this is from a US-based hacker collective called Backyard Brains. So this is actually a kit that you can buy online, and there's an app for it. You have to get the cockroach yourself, but they provide a little chip you can put on the cockroach. You put electrodes on the antennas, and you can remote control the cockroach by way of running it with an app. So it's cool cyborgism meets insects. Another fun example is transcranial direct current stimulation, which is about putting a weak electrical stimulation on your brain. Now, for those of us who don't drink coffee after 3 o'clock, and we still need a boost in late afternoon, this is what I do in my office. I put on this headband, and I give myself some weak electrical stimulation on the brain. And just in my case, it makes me more alert. Maybe it's a total hypnotic effect on myself, or placebo effect. But if it works, right? And this particular occasion was also good because it cured my hangover. Not sure if that's universally applicable. We need some further research on it, but it's a promising use of that technology. This is perhaps a bit more serious example. I don't know if you've heard about these guys. These are some biohackers from California. They are, for religious reasons, they are vegans, and they don't want to eat anything from the animal kingdom. Yet at the same time, they know that milk is a very good nutrient. So how can you, using modern synthetic biology, take cow out of the equation, take the animal out of the equation when you want to make milk? So in this case, this guy, they took genetic samples from the cells in cows that produce milk and inserted them into yeast cells. So now they have yeast cells that produce cow's milk. Isn't that pretty awesome? And once this is scalable, and this is a product that already exists, this is, to me, a significant disruption of the good old livestock industry. And of course, if you can make milk without cows, you're not limited to cows anymore. You can get pretty much whatever animal you want, right? We've even seen examples of yeast cells producing narwhal's milk. I don't know how many of you guys have drank narwhal's milk, but chances are increasing that some of you guys will in the near future. Or tiger's milk, or lion, or moose if you're from Sweden. There are many exciting options. What else do we have? So here's another recent example, which is on the other side of biohacking and the body modification part. This is a friend of mine, Sean. He's from another US biohacker group called Grindhouse Wetware. And at the Cyborg Fair in Düsseldorf recently, Sean and some of his friends got these implants that have LED lights in them. So you got implantable Christmas lights under your skin. This is also to illustrate, I mean, the creativity and the will in this community to do these experiments and just take that step. I mean, if we wanted to do this on animals, it would take many years of applications. But if you have volunteers who make informed consent and actually do it on themselves, we can learn and discover things so much faster. And I mean, one thing that we do a lot in the Swedish biohackers community is, of course, that some of you may even have heard of, to have implant parties. What type of implants we use? It's very small chip implants, typical the same that we put in the neck of cats to get through the cat flap. And The idea we have is that if you bring a group of people together and they all implant themselves and then together we discover this technology, we get this community effect that we learn from each other and we co-explore the potential uses of this technology. And in the last year, since we started this, I've personally been part of implanting more than 400 people with chip implants. And the company that sells these, which is a company called Dangerous Things, they have sold more than 10,000 of these implants in the last year and a half. So this is a technology that is taking off, albeit from an absolute zero base. But it is very interesting, the experimentation that is happening around this platform. I'm just going to give you a little bit more background of it. So what exactly is an NFC chip, for those of you who are not familiar? Well, it's a 2 by 12 millimeter glass capsule with a tiny antenna and a tiny microchip in it. And this was an Indiegogo campaign a couple of years ago. That's how we got started. And it operates with the NFC frequency, which allows it to talk to a lot of smart devices around us. And this technology in itself is not new. We have been putting exactly this type of implants in animals for the last 20 years on an enormous industrial scale. There are factories churning out hundreds of thousands of these implants a day. So why has it suddenly become interesting for humans now in 2015? Well, and why it's happening right now? The reason is that the world around us is very different than it was just a few years ago. Because what is happening is that the Internet of Things is absolutely exploding. And you guys have probably seen all these forecasts, how many billions of connected devices there's going to be in 2020, 50 billion IoT devices. By 2025, some say it's going to be 500 billion. I mean, it's difficult to fathom, but we see it's happening. And cars and coffee machines, everything is becoming connected, and things are beginning to talk to each other. And what language do the Internet of Things speak? Well, they speak a few major languages. They speak the language of Wi-Fi, they speak the language of Bluetooth, and they speak the language of NFC. NFC is the most efficient because it doesn't require as much power. So there are billions upon billions of NFC devices popping up all around us. And if you start looking for them, you see that they are already abundant. And with having an NFC-compatible implant, it gives my body the possibility to have a conversation, to identify myself, and to, in a very easy way, speak to all these connected devices. So this is really what this is about. Coming to specific uses, for me, the whole idea with getting an implant is to be able to get rid of all the junk that I carry in my pockets. I mean, we have come quite far in eliminating having to carry money around, especially coins. But still, we have to carry these metal objects, which is called keys, in our pockets. All of us do it. This is a technology that hasn't changed a lot since 2,000 years. In the ruins of Pompeii, we have found these metal keys used to open locks. So for me, it's about time that we also make this a digital technology. And this is what I'm trying to achieve. And here's a picture of my hand. And this is the stuff that I used to carry in my pockets a year ago that I have now replaced with my implant. So here is my gym card. Now when I go to the gym, I just swipe my hand at the entrance. Here are my business cards. So if someone later on wants to swipe my hand, you'll get my contact straight into your phone from my chip. Keys to padlocks and to cupboards that are already NFC enabled. These discount cards in different shops, you know, buy 10 coffees, you get 11 for free. The key fobs for my office. Now when I go to my office in the morning, I just go past all these guys standing there digging in their handbags, and I swipe my hand at the entrance, in the printers, when I turn off the alarm in the morning. I'm usually not the first one though, but occasionally. Also, this is a post-it with PIN codes and passwords. I don't have to remember these anymore either, because when I want to unlock my phone, I just tap it on the chip instead of having to type this PIN code many times a day. I don't risk someone looking over my shoulder knowing my PIN code. And you can do the same also with a lot of desktop computers that are now getting these NFC readers in them. And then there are some different discount cards, etc., for other places in Sweden. I should also have had a small USB stick on there, because I can actually store a bunch of data, whatever I want, on this implant. So there are quite a few uses, really, for this very early, quite stupid implant-level technology. Let's see. OK, so let's put this in a sort of a tech context. What's the point of chip implants? Well, if you look at tech history, which is what I really like to do, you see that certain innovations happened that made the interface between humans and technology a lot easier and enabled for much larger groups of humans to access a certain technology. I mean, the making a Windows interface, of course, was a huge improvement upon having to type specific commands in a DOS system. Putting browsers as a way to access the internet. Do any of you guys recall what it was like to use internet before browsers, when we had these bulletin board systems? For those of you who don't remember, I'll tell you, you had to know the phone number to every website you wanted to call. And then once you have called it, you had to dig through and look through all these enormous index systems and find you where you actually really needed to know where exactly stuff was to find it. But with the browser, we got this super easy interface and a way of accessing the information on the web in this way. And how many new companies have not sort of the browser interface given us? I mean, we have the Yahoo and Google and thousands of others that have come out of this new platform. And we have, looking at the touchscreen smartphone, the whole app economy that have evolved out of this platform. Again, thousands of new companies and businesses. And I personally think that the chip implants, as basic as it is, somehow represents a similar new interface between humans and technology, because it is so intuitive for us to just interact with stuff by touching it. You don't want to type a PIN code or swipe a swipe card on the smart stuff in your home. You just want it to know that it's you and not another person using it when you actually touch and use it. I'm involved in a number of projects looking at coming uses of implant technology. I'm not going to go through this, but it's just around the corner. We have payment systems using both Bitcoin and classical e-wallets. We have health monitoring, temperature measuring implants. And we also have smarter implants that you can use for encrypted logins that allow you to your physical you to have a better control over your digital you, and you get control over who you share your personal data with. And that, to me, is a very important democratization aspect as well in the current digital environment. Taking a little step back, chip implants is, to me, just sort of a spearhead of what we right now are seeing is a tremendously fast developing ecosystem of near-body technologies, all of which are subject to exponential development. Here are just some examples. I mean, health logging, you're very familiar with, Fitbits, etc. MedTech implants are not what they used to be. They are now very often connected to smartphones, run by apps. You can monitor blood sugar levels, and you can instruct insulin pumps using apps. Smart clothes, this is another fun example. A sports jersey developed for the Aussie football championships, connected to sensors that the players were wearing. So when a player was tackled, the guys in the audience felt a punch in the chest. Now, isn't that a fantastic, cool technology enhancing a sports experience? But we also have sensory enhancement technologies. This is a wearable that logs, called June from Netatmo, that logs ultraviolet radiation so that you can remember, or you get a warning if you have exposed yourself to a number of units of ultraviolet light, and you don't want to, and you need to go into the shade or put on sunscreen. In fact, giving our body a little bit of a new sense. Or this Soundhawk, which is, it looks like a Bluetooth headset, but it's in fact a microphone that allows you to hear what the person in the other part of the room is talking about, giving you super hearing. So, and just to mention also exoskeletons. another technology that is developing very rapidly, giving, for example, first responders, firemen coming to a traffic accident scene, the ability to carry very heavy metal tools and opening, cutting things apart and opening up stuff that they would not have been able to do a few years ago. And did you know that the first ball that was kicked in the World Championships in football last year was made by a person who was quadriplegic, who was wearing an exoskeleton? I don't think that got the attention it deserved, but it was really a breakthrough for the exoskeleton technology. So, what do I see? What I think you see as well after this brief presentation is that we have seen how technology goes from being big stuff, only sitting in big companies and institutions, becoming democratized, getting into desktop size in homes and offices, becoming handhelds as the phone, as the music player, ultimately becoming a wearable that you can stick in your ear like the Bragi or around your wrist like the Apple Watch. And in my view, the next step for a lot of these technologies is that they will become implantable and that we will actually be able to have them on 24/7. They will be invisible. They will just always be there, just like another organ in the body, just like the kidneys are working, the implants are logging and doing their things. And if you look at, here's just a couple of examples of cool tech that are currently in the handheld stage. But imagine what will happen once they get into the tiny size of being a pinhead. DNA sequencing equipment, now as big as a USB drive. The Scanadu Scout handheld diagnostics device about the size of a matchbox. That helps you capture a lot of your vital data and give yourself diagnostics. Or even spectrometry devices. As you know, the stuff we used to put on these Mars rovers that drove on Mars to analyze what was in those different composite rocks. What will happen when you can make those so small that you can put them in a tooth? Wouldn't that be quite exciting? So, to round off, to me, we have a huge potential to really upgrade our bodies with all this smart technology. I'm very keen, and I have a lot of friends in the biohacker movement who are experimenting with this right now. I'm sure that sort of the stuff we do now, which may seem crazy, will become mainstream products a few years from now. And here are some dimensions of upgrading the body that I see. So it's not just about health. It can really be about giving the body completely new capability. These technologies exist, and we are trying them out. So thank you for this, taking your time to listen. Happy to take questions or comments.